In today's video, I'm going to be showing you the best barefoot shoes for toddlers that hold up even in the harsh Canadian winter.
Mommy.
On our journey to finding the best shoes, I did purchase highly recommended shoes that, although I was super excited about, did not really work out as planned. So today's video is also sharing a bit of a review and experience of the shoes that are typically recommended as barefoot shoes for toddlers for winter, but in my opinion, did not live up to that. I'm going to be showing indoor shoes and outdoor shoes, the shoes that hold up in minus 20 degrees Celsius and colder, as well as the shoes that we use for milder days because it's not minus 20 every day. I'm going to be showing the shoes that we use for like proper nature adventures and play and climb all over things, and then also the shoes that we use that are just convenient to put on to quickly go to the shop. So welcome to today's video. I am Common Free. I am mom to Elba. She is 2 years and 8 months old. And I share that because the younger my kid is, the more strict I am about how barefoot a shoe needs to be and how incredibly flexible and not impede at all with her growing feet. And as she's growing older, the requirements become a little bit more in terms of the shoe being a lot more durable and being able to withstand like climbing on things and running on all sorts of terrains. But I'm still very strict about it meeting all of the barefoot requirements and not just being like a for show barefoot shoe. And that's what I'm showing in today's video. Is a lot of these shoes are not necessarily marketed and sold as barefoot shoes, but they wonderfully meet all of the requirements of being a barefoot shoe, where there are other shoes that are sold as barefoot shoes that I looked at and just felt like those were not barefoot enough for me. And with all of that being said, in no particular order, let's start talking about the shoes. Right, so first up, let's talk about like these. We have like several pairs of these. We've had these from before Elba could walk, in different colors and from different brands. And I think these are really awesome for pre-walkers just starting to walk and also using as indoor shoes. They are literally just soft sheepskin that has been sewed together with some wool at the top. You can buy a pattern, make these yourself. You can buy them off of Amazon. Usually you can buy them off of Etsy. You can find them in pretty much any country, and they all have like a similar style like this. They're very slipper-like, and they still are non-slip because the bottom of them is leather. That's the kind of shoe that we pretty much have for Elba like since her first winter.
I like my slippers.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And I continue to just have them around in the house. When we start to get to the point where it becomes harder to find the size, which probably not this year, probably next year, I will venture into figuring out how to make them.
First, you use the blue one.
The blue one? All right. Then next up we have, I love these. Okay, where's your first ones? Okay, this is the first pair that Elba got of these ones. They are the MEC, Mountain Equipment Company toaster booties. They usually come with their toaster snowsuit, which is how we got these, but I've actually started purchasing them separate from that. And I did get her a second pair for last year as well because she wore them so often. So this is the second pair that I got for her. They are completely flexible. They literally are like snowsuit material with a little bit of a rough thing at the bottom, and then inside puffy, velcro, easy to put on. And these were a huge go-to because they're super easy to put on. They kept our feet like mostly warm for most of the days. They hold up so well over like every single type of terrain. So these were like the most all-round shoe that she wore last year, that was worn through all different types of activities and adventure, like just going to somebody's house, also wearing them to the park and to play on things. The mech stuff runs big. These are small and they lasted her through 2 winters. And I think they're only now starting to get a little bit tight. So I do have them in the medium size as well. And I already thrifted. I found this brand new pair of them. I think this is
a big one.
Yeah, it's a big one. Yeah. The extra large size. And still they maintain, sorry. Okay, I'll show this one. Sure. They maintain the like complete just flexibility. They are wide They are awesome. My only thing with them, like the only non-yay these shoes thing that I can say is, like you can see they're made of, it's like 100% polyester, where we really like natural fibers. The other thing is they are like water resistant, but they are not waterproof. They can withstand quite a lot of water, lots of walking on snow without her feet getting wet, but they're definitely not going to hold up if you step like straight into slush. Those are big, yeah. Or water or things like that. Her feet are going to get wet. Then the other thing with them is that while they can go to pretty like cold days, especially if you're putting nice wool socks on your kid on the inside, they are not sufficient for us spending a decent chunk of time outside, and we need something that is warmer than this to not just be able to be outside, because it's one thing to just be able to go outside when you quickly go into the shop, but you actually spend time outside and have like a nature adventure, feel comfortable being outside. And that's what we want for our kids. Living here in Canada, we really make an effort to be intentional about spending time outside even when it's cold. And the way that you do that is you get the right gear to do that. I'm going to show you. I am so proud and happy and all the things of the shoes that I did find. The one thing with these shoes is that if you are wearing them the way that we wore them, where you really just let your kid wear them and play and climb on things and ride the bike if they can ride the bike in the snow and all of that, is that they do wear quite a bit, because I mean they don't have like a real shoe sole. So by the end of last season they were definitely taking strain, and I reinforced the front just to close it up, which I think is a good habit to get in anyway, because you want your kid to explore. You don't want them to be limited and like worry too much about protecting the shoe, because the shoe is supposed to work for you and not you like changing your life around your shoe. So what I used here, I can link it down below. I think it's used to like fix tents and like rafts and things. It works so well to fix these types of shoes and to just reinforce the front or anywhere else that looks like it's taking a little bit of strain before it like completely tears. But in saying that, I thrift a lot of stuff and I buy a lot of stuff secondhand. These shoes were purchased secondhand and she wore them through 2 winters, so they really got worn a lot before they wore down. They're also very easy to wash. You can just throw them in the washing machine. So that was a long story about the Mech toaster booties, but I highly recommend them because they're awesome and we will continue to use them for a few more years at least. Okay, I'm maybe contradicting myself here just a little bit. Those are awesome. We're gonna carry on using them. However, I do have a strong preference for natural things. So this year, in preparation for the colder, I've already been looking into natural options of things that I could make for Elba that is a similar type of boot where you just put it on really quickly, but the whole boot is natural. And it's not just about the natural fibers touching her, it's also about being a little bit warmer. So sheepskin stuff is very nice for everybody, but for toddlers, for winter, and that's definitely my preference when it comes to shoes, is to have like a nice sheepskin layer on the inside or to have a wool element. Because what I find with shoes that are made of polyester versus shoes that are made of wool or have sheep wool on them, the wool is so good at regulating regulating temperature. So what we found with Elba when she wears the polyester type shoes is that if she got hot, then her feet would be quite sweaty, and then sometimes her feet would get cold, of course, and then like I would feel her foot afterwards and it's quite cold. But when she wears the natural fiber stuff, because they regulate temperature so well, she doesn't have this thing where if we're fluctuating in a day, like she's playing around a lot and getting hot when she's playing versus being carried where she gets colder, it's so great at regulating that temperature that when I touch her feet when we come inside, they're just like the rest of her body. They don't feel sweaty or clammy or like cold or anything like that. They just feel like the rest of her body, which means they're regulating temperature so much better than the plastic type things. So because of that reason, I started looking into what I could make for her. This year I've started making shoes because I wanted some really, really like proper barefoot shoes. And before you say like, hey, I watched this video to buy stuff, I definitely don't want to be making stuff. I have no shoe making skills. I had no shoe making skills before I started making shoes. So anything I make is beginner friendly because I am a beginner. I do link that on my channel. A lot of the time I show the tutorials of how I made it. And also I link it on my website down below of what I did. This is my first, we're like only now going into the colder weather. So you will see on my channel and on my website, I still have lots of plans for other things that I'm going to make, but my first attempt pair did work out well enough to show these. They are completely flexible. They have a wide toe box and a proper sole. And they're made of 100%, I think this is actually merino wool, or it might be sheep wool, I can't remember. But I've linked this down below, the pattern that I used for this. But essentially what they are, it's like, you know those leather moccasin type shoes that toddlers wear a lot? It's that, and then with this outer part that is made onto it. So that's awesome. In making these, I have a video linked down below, you can find it on my website. I thrifted 100% wool sweaters. I figured out how to felt them. It's really easy. And then they shrink and they become a sewable material. And then I just use my normal sewing machine. Did I even put like another needle on? I don't even think I did. I think I just used my normal needle and I sewed these up. And then I stuck a rubber crepe sole to the bottom of them with some shoe glue. Obviously, I wish the sole was a darker color, but I am limited for choice in terms of where I can source rubber crepe sole. So, until I can find a better source of it, they're just gonna be this color and then they look dirty. But it's a fantastic sole for shoes. I made sandals for Alba, I made sandals for my husband. He just did an 11K hike in the sandals that I did for him, and they held up so well over rocks and everything. You get that wonderful feedback on your feet that you want with barefoot shoes while still protecting your feet from anything that is sharp and could pierce the skin of your feet. And the reason I mention that is because so many barefoot winter shoes, in the name of keeping you warm, have soles that technically pass the test of being flexible. Like, you know, we've all seen that like classic bend photo, but what they don't maintain is that feeling of whatever you're walking on coming through your feet. And that is so important for me as a toddler mom for my toddler, because I had this sadness that so much of her walking life initially was on very basic terrain, because in the cold you're not venturing like as much into nature when they're little, or at least we didn't, and we will more in future and make an active effort of that. But I really found that a lot of her walking life was with shoes on and not really feeling the different textures under her feet outside that I wanted for her, that I grew up with, because I didn't grow up here and I didn't grow up where it's so cold that you have to like wear shoes outside. Where I grew up, you could still, wasn't super pleasant, but you could definitely go outside barefoot in winter, and I did go outside barefoot in winter. So for me, it isn't just that the sole needs to have that nice like classic bend, that's great, but also still maintain that feedback through the foot, have the foot muscles be moving and working and feel the sensations of what we're walking on. So that's why I really have been loving the rubber crepe soles. I'm gonna show you where I got the inspiration for that. That is coming up. But you gotta draw on wisdom from people who know the climate of where you live, I feel. It's like it serves us to do that. Now let's move to a shoe that I had like super high hopes for, and then found like, I think Elba wore it like 3 times because I just didn't find it lived up to the hype and the expectation of it. So there's 2 types of them. I'm gonna show both of them. I did buy both of them, and that is the Stonz boots. So here we've got the first type, as you can see, very much wide. It's similar to the Mech one, where it's like snowsuit vibe going on with it, but instead of Velcro, it has these things. That's great too for like durability. Of course, something like this is more durable than Velcro, and both of them children can put on by themselves and they can close up nicely and they give you flexibility of size over something like press studs, but I don't have like a strong preference for either. So what I was super excited about these is, yeah, they are wide like I said, and as you can see, incredibly flexible. So obviously I had high hopes for them. Now the other type, before I talk about why they didn't live up to my high expectations, this is the other type of them. This one doesn't have the like bear type shoe, and then you buy, if you want to, the inner that goes in it. But hands down, people will tell you in Canada that if you only wear this will not be warm enough for your kids. So they highly recommend the inner, which you can buy and then you slot into it. So you get this outer and then you put the inner in. I was so sure these were gonna work that I bought 2 pairs of them in case the one pair was dirty and needed a wash or wet or something. So for last winter, we literally had like these 3 of the Stone boots plus the inners that everybody recommends. And we just found that they did not work as well. What I was so excited about them is that your kid can be wearing a slipper like this. This is the same as what I showed earlier. It's just I had 2 pairs. So your kid can be wearing this inside, and then you just grab this and put it around the outside and close them up. So it seemed really convenient and really practical. But why I ended up barely using them, even though all of that stuff seems super, is if you do look at them. So you take that compared to like that. This is very wide. Now typically I wouldn't be one to complain about wide, but what we want is a wide toe box. It's not that our entire foot is wide. We have a spread at the toes and then the foot comes in. Whereas these are wide like everywhere. And the problem with that is when she would walk, this type of sole, it didn't hold up well on the foot. So she would be walking like awkwardly and trip quite a bit. It wasn't like giving her natural foot movement because she was so awkward in walking in them because they're just so wide, and then they'd also like hit against each other sometimes when she would walk as well, again because they're so wide. So while the toaster boots, for example, are also very wide, they don't have this type of sole, so they moved with her foot and I didn't see her tripping or walking awkwardly in them at all. Where these ones, every single time she wore them, she just walked awkwardly. And initially I thought it was just us. I'm like, maybe they just weren't working for us. Then I spoke to another Barefoot mom who'd also bought them, also optimistically feeling like these are gonna be like our favorite winter shoe ever. And she had the same experience of them just being like really awkward for your kid to walk in and defeats the purpose of natural movement if they're moving in an awkward way to try and make the shoes work for them. Now, Alba has since outgrown them in length, but they're still incredibly wide. So I'm not going to be purchasing the next size up because I think we're just going to have the same problem of them being just too wide. Where I think maybe for like a baby that's standing and not walking, they would be nice because then it's super easy to put on. As soon as your kid is walking, especially when they're like, now she walks obviously confidently, climbs, jumps, all the things, but when they're first starting to walk, a shoe like this feels like it's impeding on that practice because it's literally adding like a challenging element to walking. And that's why these ended up not working for us. And they're not that warm that I was willing to take the like awkward walk, and they're not that like convenient either. I love the idea of slipping them over something, but we ended up being fine with like the toaster boots could slip over slippers as well, or she just wore socks inside and then we slipped these over. So I didn't find that these the other benefits like made it worth it, even for short trips, like even to the shop or something. I tried them a few times and I was like, oh no, like I really don't want it to be like awkwardly walking in these shoes. So anyway, that's very sad for me because I had high hopes, and I'm filming this now so I can list these to sell them secondhand. I bought them secondhand and I won't be purchasing them again for this winter. I have saved the 2 best ones for last. I've only got 2 left to show you, even though I'm like covered in shoes over here. So before I show you the 2 that I highly recommend, that I'm like, whenever somebody asks about barefoot shoes in Canada, these are the 2 that I'm like, you should definitely have this. One is an indoor shoe, one is an outdoor shoe that we use for like the super cold, as well as the nature adventure. But before I get there, I do just want to say I have specific plans. I spoke about like all my DIY plans earlier. I have specific plans to make like a UGG type shoe with sheepskin, and then just make it barefoot and then add the rubber crepe sole to that as well. Again, we'll see when I actually make them, but my normal sewing machine can sew through sheepskin and thin leather, so you don't need leather making skills or special equipment to be able to do them. You need to be able to cut straight and sew a straight line and generally follow a pattern. Right, now to the last 2 shoes that I think are amazing. So the first one is the indoor shoe. These are last year's ones, that's why they're so small. These are, I think they're specifically Highland wool, but I don't think it no, these are, anyway, I'll link them down below because I made them. I actually learned to crochet because I decided I was gonna make those shoes. And the reason I did that is you will find them, they're very popular for like all ages, from pre-walkers through to walkers, is like these ones. I did not make these. Like here's the brand of them. Now I wanted them, and they're quite pricey. I understand why. They're made of 100% wool and they've got a sheepskin sole, so I completely understand why they cost what they cost. But with our whole family wanting to wear them, and also like knowing that I was gonna buy a new pair every single year, I was like, nah, I'm gonna just make these. That's like way cheaper. You buy the pattern once, it covers all of the sizes, then every year you just buy the wool and the sole and you just make them. It works out a lot cheaper, and honestly it is a super beginner friendly crocheting project. You do not need to be well versed at crocheting to be able to make these at all. Making slippers was my first crochet project, and it really is very, very basic to do. So link down below is the pattern that I purchased, as well as the company that I purchased the wool from. And to make life easier for myself, I did purchase the soles like already pre-cut into sole shape, as well as with the holes punched into them. I have made many pairs of them now, and I really enjoy making them. The only reason that this year she has these ones that I did not make is because I happened to find them like super, super cheap for brand new in a thrift store, so I bought them. But I do prefer when you make them, you can pick the wool that you feel is best. Like I said, her ones versus, can you have my papa's shoes on here? The ones that I made for myself and my husband and my mom, our wool is like slightly less soft than the wool that I used for her one, but still super, super soft relative to this wool. Anyway, they hold up really well. I have sent them through the washing machine, obviously on a wool wash and all of that, and I think that it is worthwhile, especially if you're going to be getting them every single year, is to just make them yourself. Otherwise you can't purchase them, or you can purchase ones like that other people make off of Facebook Marketplace or Etsy. And now we are on the final shoe that I'm like so happy about, and I'm gonna share why I'm so happy about it. Thanks. When I was considering what to get Elba as the shoe that will hold up in super cold and outdoor adventures, I looked for hours. I spent literally hours. And spending hours, I just did not see a single barefoot shoe for Canadian winter that I felt was going to meet our needs. And I looked through all of the big brands because, as you saw here, none of these shoes are particularly sold as barefoot shoes. Now, for myself and for my husband, it's always been very easy for us to get barefoot shoes for ourselves, especially before we lived in Canada. We would buy, you know, the big barefoot shoe brands. Mostly, like almost all of our shoes are Vivo Barefoot. But since living in a much harsher climate, now I also almost feel that with the rise of the popularity of, I don't really want to go into this too much, this is like a working theory that I've got going on, but with the rise in popularity of barefoot shoes, I almost feel like some of the really OG barefoot companies are starting to make shoes that are very much not as barefoot as they used to be when we first started wearing them. Anyway, I searched, I contemplated, I spoke to lots of other parents who prioritize barefoot shoes, and I really just couldn't find myself like taking the plunge and purchasing one of the popular barefoot brand winter shoes because they just didn't look barefoot enough for my liking, and they didn't seem warm enough for Canadian winter. Now, as an example, I have the Vivo Barefoot like winter boot. It's a leather boot, and I have it with the thermal inner, and it works like super well in fall, in like winter days that are not that cold. It like was amazing through South African winters, but I can definitely not wear it in like even a moderately cold day in Canadian winter. Even with thick socks, it is not warm enough. So I had a friend who purchased the Vivo Barefoot like toddler winter boot that I was contemplating for like a long time. And then when I saw them, I was happy that I didn't buy them because firstly, they weren't that warm. And secondly, the design is such that they're not as flexible as I would want for a toddler. I have different standards. Like as they get a little bit older, then you can compromise a little bit on the flexibility. But when they're still very young, I feel like shoes really, really need to be super flexible. And for me, it isn't just okay that they can do this. Like they really need to be properly flexible. Then the other thing with those designs, I'm not bashing this at all. It's true for a lot of barefoot shoes. They're just not practical to put onto a small child's foot. So when you have to like pull it on, a lot of the time you end up not getting it on properly, and then you just give up because it's a short distance and now your child's walking awkwardly in shoes they're not on properly that you went out and bought at a steepish price tag, because barefoot shoes often don't come cheap, for your child to be wearing a shoe that is impeding in the way that they move, even if it's just for a short distance. It's not really serving you in the way that you want it to be doing. And again, I'm not bashing that at all, but what I am saying is, like, I for sure do this where sometimes you just want to buy the thing and it says it's a barefoot shoe, it says it's gonna hold up, so you get it. And the reason I was to say that is because I was like not sure about whether I was making the right choice or not. Like I was really going back and forth about what I should do. So what I eventually ended up doing, and it did work out, and I'm so happy about that, because not everything that we try and experiment works out. Last year for myself, because one of the things that was really bugging me about getting outside for winter was also the snow boots that I was wearing. I was not enjoying that. I had proper mucklucks made, like custom made, to have a wide toe box, and then I gave all the specifications and the measurements of my foot and all of that. It is for sure an investment. It's not cheap at all. However, it was like 100% worth it for me. Now, in speaking to the person, I then inquired about whether I could have shoes made for Alba and what it would cost, because I was a bit worried about when you have custom made shoes for a toddler, like especially because we're going to be doing them every year. I was a bit worried about like how much of a price tag that was going to be and whether she could do that and so forth. Long story short, she could. She made some recommendations. The price was similar to barefoot shoes like that you buy if not actually cheaper in some regards, especially because I didn't pay shipping and I didn't have to pay customs and all sorts of things to be importing Barefoot shoes. They were made by somebody here in Calgary, and then I just went and I picked them up. So these are them. They are a wraparound mucklucks made for Elba for last year. We are in the process. I've already ordered her ones for this year. I ordered literally exactly the same. I sent a photo of this. I said, hey, you made this for me last year. Please make it again. Here's the new measurements. For Elba, they work so well. So this is almost like identical to my mucklucks, except mine you just pull on, whereas these ones are wraparound, so they open up like this, which makes it so much easier to get them onto her foot properly. The inside is sheepskin, as you can see. The outside is deer hide, if I remember correctly. Yeah. And the bottom is the rubber crepe sole. So now you know where I got the idea of the rubber crepe sole. She definitely has a better rubber crepe sole supplier than I do. These are a thinner rubber crepe. Very nice. Glued on really, really well. And these are handmade. And then this is just the laces to wrap them around and to close them up. Honestly, like when I purchased them, when I put in the order, I was very nervous. I did not know if this was gonna work and if they were gonna be worth the money spent on them and the time waiting for them and sending through all the specifications and all the things. And I have been absolutely thrilled with them. I talk about them non-stop to anybody who asks for Barefoot recommendations because they are a truly barefoot shoe. They are very flexible. They're obviously small and now there's like a lot of bulk. So like bending them is just because this part here is taking up the space. She is feeling the sensations from the earth when she's walking outside, even in super, super cold weather. And her feet never got cold. We went out in like properly cold and her feet were just perfect temperature coming inside. The other nice thing is like whenever I would put her in the car the car is now warm, but I know that we're gonna get out, so we're still putting on our shoes at home and then we get in the car and we drive somewhere. A lot of the time with other types of shoes and things, they would get too hot. Because these are sheepskin, I did not experience that at all. They regulate temperature so well that even though she was in the warm car, her feet were not overly hot. She was not overheating at all. And then we'd get to the other side, we were doing like outdoor nature play type things. So we'd be able to get straight out, put her snow suit thing on and just go play, which is fantastic just in terms of that regulation of the temperature, not to go like hot, cold and get sweaty and all the things. They also, which you might be wondering, held up super well in slush. You can do things to protect your like hide, leathery type shoes to make them more waterproof, so you can spray them with some stuff. I can't remember if I did this for her last year before I just left them as is, but I do it for my ones and they hold up like insanely well even through slush. Would I want her to be standing in a puddle in them? No, because they're not like that kind of shoe, but I wouldn't be worried if she did. I think that they would hold up. I just wouldn't like recommend it or go seek that out. So even wearing them myself, my feet never got wet. Her feet were never wet, and we walked through really high like levels of snow where definitely they don't go in the top because it's nice and closed, and they just held up through everything. And I watched her climb on things and her feet could bend and her feet were warm. So these are the shoes that I non-stop talk about when somebody asks me for barefoot shoes that hold up in like proper cold winter and are just like, they meet all the requirements. So I sent through the measurements to make sure that the toe box was wide enough, and you also get to pick like what do you want them to be made out of because they're being custom made. If you can find somebody who can make these, I highly recommend it. The other thing that there is a brand that like lots of people buy, like the Manitoba mucklucks, and I did look at those. The sole is definitely not like flexible enough for my liking. They have a normal sole. They don't have the rubber crepe sole. They have a normal shoe sole, and for me that's not barefoot enough for my toddler or even for myself. So that's why I didn't just go with the Manitoba Mucklucks. I think there's another company, I don't think they make Toddler shoes, but I did see that they make like the traditional Mucklucks with the rubber crepe sole that you can purchase. You don't have to have it custom made. But I was worried that if I was purchasing them, that the toe box would not be wide enough. They will stretch because they're made of hide, but ideally I wanted, especially for myself, because I'm only buying like one pair, hopefully every 10 years or so, where I wanted to make sure that the toe box was wide enough for my liking and that they met all the Barefoot shoe requirements for me. And that brings me to the end of today's video. I highly recommend these. I highly recommend some wool slippers with sheepskin bottoms, and then they're also very nice is those mech booties that I spoke of. If you have some Barefoot shoes that you would recommend to people, or ones that you tried that did or didn't work, please share that below in the comments, because I think it is super helpful for anybody in the Barefoot community to be hearing other people's experiences, as we're all just trying to navigate and figure out what works best for our families and for the climates that we are living in. So for this winter, I'm super excited. Last winter, there was like an insane amount of time spent on sourcing shoes, thinking about shoes, hours and hours. My mom lives in Europe. Should I be buying one there that she brings for us? You name it. This winter, I feel so relaxed and I could focus on other things, because last winter was like my super trial and error winter. And then this one, I'm like, I know what works for us. We're doing that again. And we're gonna go with that. So with that, I leave you. If you found value in this video, please remember to like and subscribe and all of those nice things. Okay, go. Let's go. Okay. So thanks so much for being here with me today.